some 40 minutes after sunset. On that launch pad, a Russian Soyuz-2.1b booster rocket stands fully fueled, ready to lift off 21 minutes from now to send a new module on a 2-day journey to the International Space Station. Good morning from Mission Control in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room. The module is named Prичал, the Russian word for pier, a 5-ton module with multiple docking ports that will serve as a port of call for future Russian visiting vehicles, whether unpiloted Progress resupply craft or piloted Soyuz spacecraft. 5 vehicles in all can dock to Prичал. It is a bulbous module that will be transported to the station by a modified Progress MUM propulsion stage for an automated docking Friday morning to the Earth-facing port of the Naoka Multipurpose Laboratory module that arrived at the complex in late July. The combined Prичал Progress vehicle will separate from the third stage of the Soyuz 2.1b booster 8 minutes 45 seconds after launch, after which the Progress will deploy its solar arrays and navigational antennas, and the chase to catch up to the station will begin. Prichal's automated docking to Naoka Friday is scheduled at 9:26 a.m. Central Time. This is the final module that will complete the Russian segment of the International Space Station. At the time of launch, just a few minutes from now, the International Space Station and the 7 residents comprising the Expedition 66 crew will be flying 263 miles over the South Atlantic, east of Argentina. To make way for the arrival of Prичал, the unpiloted Progress 78 cargo craft that was relocated to Naoka's Earth-facing port last month will undock early Thanksgiving morning and will be deorbited to harmlessly burn up over the Pacific Ocean. The Progress propulsion stage that will guide Prичал toward the station will detach from Prичал December 21st and will also be deorbited, and Prичал, also known as the node module, will then be electrically connected to Naoka and outfitted with docking targets and handrails during the next Russian spacewalk from the station in January. That's all part of the ongoing commissioning of both Prичал and Naoka for future operations. The Soyuz 2.1b booster rolled out from its integration building at Site 31 at the Байконур Cosmodrome at sunrise on Sunday morning. It was quite frigid, about 9 degrees Fahrenheit in the early morning hours on Sunday. The 35-minute trip from the integration building to the launch pad culminated with the rocket being hoisted vertically on hydraulics from its rail car to its typical vertical position, where technicians hooked up electrical connections and fuel lines for the final few days of processing. And for good measure, a fox that typically patrols the Site 31 area at the Байконур Cosmodrome was on hand to keep tabs on the rollout activities this past Sunday. As we speak, the countdown proceeds normally towards launch at 7:06 and 36 seconds a.m. Central Time, which will be 6:06 p.m. in Байконур, about 17.5 minutes from now. The weather in Байконур a bit balmy for this time of the year, 44 degrees Fahrenheit, partly cloudy skies for this nighttime launch. And again, the launch time calculated at the precise moment when the Earth's rotation carries the Байконур Cosmodrome launch site into the plane of the space station's orbit. The Soyuz 2.1b rocket will arc out to the northeast into an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator, and 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch, after the Prичал module and the attached Progress delivery craft separate from the third stage of the Soyuz booster, the Progress's navigational antennas and its solar arrays will unfurl, and the 34-orbit 2-day rendezvous will be underway. A pre-programmed series of engine firings will raise the altitude of the Progress and Prичал combined craft to match the altitude of the International Space Station and ultimately fine-tune its path to the complex for its automated docking on Friday morning. As mentioned, this is the final module scheduled to be launched to complete the Russian segment of the International Space Station. The first module launched 23 years and 4 days ago, that being the Zarya module that launched from Байконур from a different launch pad on November 20th, 1998. To begin the assembly of the International Space Station, that launching on a Proton rocket from Байконур. Several hours ago, the fueling of the Soyuz-2.1b rocket was completed, and at the moment, the fuel is being replenished up until a few minutes from now, when the ground feed will be terminated and the first stage engines and fuel tanks will be pressurized to flight pressure. Here in Mission Control in Houston, the Orbit 1 team of flight controllers on console at this hour. They've just finished a poll and all positions polled go for the launch of the node module just a few minutes from now. In the foreground in the blue shirt is Flight Director Rick Henfling, who's the lead flight director for node module operations here in Houston. To his right, in the lavender shirt, is spacecraft communicator Jay Marshke, who was talking directly with the space station crew. They've been up and working for the better part of the overnight hours, conducting a number of scientific experiments and onboard maintenance on this day before Thanksgiving. Across the Atlantic Ocean at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov, outside of Moscow, you're looking at a view from a balcony camera as flight controllers there, who will be in control of the Progress Prичал module combination after third stage separation, are monitoring their consoles. They will take over control at the 8-minute 45-second mark when Prичал separates from the upper stage of the Soyuz 2.1b booster for the remainder of the 2-day rendezvous and its automated docking to the International Space Station. Countdown clocks continue to tick backward. We're now at the 13.5-minute mark until launch. A series of events will begin in trip hammer fashion at about the T-minus 7-minute mark. That will be the point at which the blockhouse in Байконур will transition to internal automated operations. The onboard systems will be switched to onboard control at about the T-minus 4-minute mark. The range at Байконур will be declared green for launch operations. At the T-minus 2-minute 45-second mark, the booster tank for the first stage will be pressurized. That will optimize the flow of fuel, helping to add structural support for the rocket as it stands on the launch pad. And about a minute later, the ground propellant feed will be terminated. There are two umbilical towers that are buttressed up against the side of the Soyuz 2.1b rocket. The first will retract at about the T-minus 31-second mark. The second will retract at about the T-minus 12-second mark to initiate the engine sequencing start. On board the International Space Station, the Expedition 66 crew, led by the station commander, Russian cosmonaut Anton Shkaplerov, are up and working, moving into the second half of their workday. Shkaplerov joined on board by the recently arrived Crew 3 astronauts, Raja Chari, Tom Marshburn, Matthias Maurer of the European Space Agency, and Caleb Barron. Shkaplerov also joined by fellow cosmonaut Pyotr Dubrov and NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei. Dubrov and Vande Hei in the midst of what ultimately will be about a 355-day mission on board the International Space Station, having launched this past April on their own Soyuz rocket. Initial calls here at the coming up on the 10-minute mark until launch from the blockhouse in Байконур indicate that all systems are ready to support launch. All positions have pulled go. And again, here in Houston, Flight Director Rick Henfling a short time ago pulled his team of flight controllers and passed on the green light for launch to his Russian shift flight director counterpart at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. The International Space Station itself has passed into an orbital sunrise over the South Pacific at the moment, soon to cross the west coast of South America, and then back out over the Atlantic Ocean and across the west coast of Africa on this particular orbit of the Earth. A busy time on board the station, today's launch, to be followed tomorrow by the undocking and disposal of the ISS Progress 78 cargo craft, and then of course the docking of the Prичал node module on Friday morning that we will be broadcasting live. Next week, a spacewalk on tap by NASA astronauts Tom Marshburn and Caleb Barron to replace a faulty S-band communication antenna system on the Port 1 truss of the International Space Station. We'll have a briefing on all of that on Monday. We'll talk more about that later. The spacewalk itself scheduled to begin Tuesday, November 30th at 6:10 a.m. Central Time, a 6.5-hour spacewalk planned for Tom Marshburn and Caleb Barron. We're coming up on the 8.5-minute mark until launch. And we are at T-minus 8 minutes and counting. No issues reported from the blockhouse at Байконур. All systems ready to support launch. T-minus 7 minutes and counting. A launch key now being inserted into a control panel at the launch bunker at Байконур, a real key transitioning the launch sequence into its automated mode. You'll notice on this Soyuz 2.1b booster a slightly bigger, wider fairing encapsulating the upper stage of the Soyuz booster. This specially designed to accommodate the girth of the combined Prичал node module and its attached Progress MUM delivery craft, if you will, a propulsion module that is pre-programmed to automatically guide Prичал for its automated docking to the Nauka module of the International Space Station's Russian segment on Friday morning. T-minus 6 minutes and counting. T-minus 5 minutes and counting. Everything in readiness for launch. The range at Байконур is clear. The Soyuz booster ready to begin its journey. Again, 8 minutes, 45 seconds from launch until third stage separation and spacecraft separation of the Prичал module and the attached Progress delivery craft. The Progress then will unfurl its solar rays and navigational antennas in the first phase of an automated series of engine firings over the next 2 days to bring Prичал into the vicinity of the International Space Station for automated operations and its automated docking to the Earth-facing port of the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module on Friday morning. T-minus 4 minutes and counting. Onboard systems now being switched to onboard control. Flight recorders have been activated. T-minus 3 minutes and counting, all systems in readiness for the upcoming launch of the Soyuz-2.1b booster and the final module to complete the Russian segment of the International Space Station. The first stage is now being pressurized for flight. T-minus 2 minutes and counting. First stage pressurization now complete. Coming up on the termination of the ground propellant feed to the Soyuz booster. Coming up on the T-minus 1 minute mark, the Soyuz going on internal power. The first of the two umbilicals will be retracting about 30 seconds from now. T-minus 38 seconds. And the first umbilical now retracting as planned. The second will retract at the T-minus 12 second mark. Auto sequence now initiated. The second umbilical has retracted. Engine start begins. Preliminary commanding, T-minus 5 seconds. Engines up to flight speed. And liftoff. 23 years and 4 days after the first module launched to the International Space Station, a new docking port takes flight. "25 seconds into the flight, the Soyuz booster arcing out to the northeast from the Байконур cosmodrome. All parameters look good. Roll, pitch, and yaw programmer in. Vehicle parameters are reported to be stable. And having lost the booster in the clouds, we're at the 1 minute 7 second mark into the flight. This is animation being provided by Roscosmos from the Russian Mission Control Center. All engine parameters on the first stage are reported to be in great shape. All engine parameters reported to be in nominal condition and good engine performance. As reported from the blockhouse in Байконур, the rocket passed through the period of maximum dynamic pressure. We're coming up on the 2 minute mark into the flight. Good pitch, roll, and yaw. Good structural stability on the Soyuz-2.1b. First stage separation has been confirmed. Second stage engine up and running. Two minutes, 25 seconds into the flight. Next up will be the shroud jettison, the jettisoning of the fairing around the Prичал node module and the Progress delivery craft. All engines performing nominally. 2 minutes, 45 seconds into the flight. Coming up on the 3 minute mark. The vehicle reported to be stable. Good engine performance. Pitch, yaw, and roll, all nominal. Good engine performance, good structural stability. Coming up on the 3.5 minute mark into the flight. Second stage engine is running as advertised so far. passing the 3-minute 50-second mark into the flight. Less than 5 minutes of powered flight remaining. Good performance from the second stage engines. Everything in good shape on the Soyuz-2.1b booster so far. Good structural parameters reported, good stability as we pass the 4.5-minute mark into the flight. Five minutes into the flight, all the reports from the blockhouse in Байконур continue to be nothing but nominal. We have confirmation of second stage separation. Launch shroud jettison now confirmed, exposing the Prичал module and the Progress delivery craft to the environment of the upper atmosphere. Good structural parameters reported at the 5.5-minute mark into the flight. A little over 3 minutes of powered flight remaining. Now at the 6-minute mark into the flight. Good third stage performance. Two and a half minutes of powered flight remaining. Everything is looking good as the third stage continues to propel the Prичал module to its preliminary orbit. Third stage separation planned at the 8-minute 45-second mark. Good stability on the Soyuz booster. The third stage is continuing to perform as planned. We have passed the 7-minute mark into the flight. Good stability on the vehicle at the 7.5-minute mark into the flight. About 1 minute and 15 seconds of powered flight remaining. Good performance by the third stage reported from the blockhouse in Байконур as we have passed the 8-minute mark into the flight. Once again receiving telemetry-driven animation from the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. Eight-and-a-half-minute mark now having been crossed. We're about 15 seconds away from third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. And we have confirmation of third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. And we now have confirmation of the deployment of the Progress solar arrays and navigational antennas. So the Prичал node module, the final component for the Russian segment of the International Space Station, safely in its preliminary orbit after a flawless ride to orbit on top of the Soyuz-2.1b booster. Liftoff occurring at 7:06 and 36 seconds a.m. Central Time from the Байконур Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The flight now in the hands of those flight controllers you're seeing at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow, reporting that the Corps' automated rendezvous antenna, also having been deployed, is now reporting good telemetry in the early stage of the flight. Again, this is a 34-orbit, 2-day rendezvous to reach the International Space Station for an automated docking on Friday at 9:26 a.m. Central Time. Prичал to link up to the Earth-facing port of the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module that arrived at the International Space Station back in late July. And this a view of the external engineering cross-haired view camera on the Progress delivery craft that is attached to the Prичал node module in an early test of its telemetry capability that will come into play more significantly when the Progress and Prичал arrive in the vicinity of the International Space Station on Friday morning. This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, just to recap, the Prичал module, the node module that will serve as a multi-hatched docking port for the Russian segment of the International Space Station, launched on time and successfully at 7:06 and 36 seconds a.m. Central Time this morning from Site 31 at the Байконур Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Here's a quick replay of the launch that occurred Just about 14 and a half minutes ago, it was a flawless ride to orbit atop of the Soyuz-2.1b booster from Launch Pad 6 at Site 31. 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch, the Prичал and the attached Progress delivery craft, a propulsion module, if you will, attached to Prичал, was separated from the third stage of the Soyuz booster. Solar arrays and navigational antennas deployed on the Progress as planned, and it is on its way for an automated docking to the Naoka module of the International Space Station on Friday morning. Before we sign off, a few programming notes. Tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day, the ISS Progress 78 cargo craft that is currently docked to Naoka, that will undock at 5:23 a.m. Central Time. There will be no NASA television coverage of the undocking of that Progress craft. That will be deorbited to burn up over the Pacific Ocean tomorrow. That will clear the Naoka docking port for the arrival of Prичал, the node module, on Friday morning, with our coverage beginning at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, leading to an automated docking at 9:26 a.m. Central, 10:26 a.m. Eastern Time. You'll see all of that on NASA TV. Once the holiday weekend is over with, there's more on tap next week. We'll have a briefing on Monday, November 29th at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern.